The metallic tang of bile in my throat was nothing compared to the bitter taste of betrayal. Confined to the restroom, my trousers bunched around my ankles, I stifled a retch, while just beyond the door, my wife's laughter mingled with another man's, echoing the infidelity that had shattered my world. I struggled to breathe through the discomfort, try to ignore the sounds of conversation that drifted in, followed by more unsettling laughter. Initially, I dismissed it, attributing it to my own nausea, but then I discerned their words. They were ridiculing me, mocking my very existence. I wasn't even meant to be privy to their conversation, yet I absorbed every single word. They found amusement in my complete ignorance, while my wife, Evelyn, was involved intimately with another man, as if I were merely the punchline to a cruel jest. How does a man remain so oblivious? How does he overlook such blatant indicators unfolding right beneath his gaze? The most prominent voice belonged to Charles White. Indeed, that Charles. The same smooth-talking individual who now felt compelled to recount every sordid detail to his associate, Victor Stone, as if he had just claimed a prize and was eager to display it. The particular evening he referenced was connected to the Glendale Gallery assignment. I had been summoned for a quick break-in investigation, a maximum of 2 hours. As a lead field operative for a premier insurance corporation, my job specializing in high-value thefts and elaborate scams meant I was accustomed to rapid deployment. I prided myself on precision, integrity, and operating without pretense. I've been in this profession since my university days, and at 37, I was highly proficient, known for my meticulous approach to every case, whether it was a stolen Monet or a vanished-type prototype. If a costly item vanished, I was swiftly contacted, my reputation preceding me even in the most exclusive circles of old money families, tech magnates, celebrities, and art enthusiasts. I traveled extensively, but rarely lingered, and for extended engagements, I deployed a member of my specialized team. My instincts were sharp, honed over years of deciphering human deception and uncovering hidden truths. At home, I believed I had achieved stability, a sanctuary from the complexities of my work. Evelyn and I have been married for 14 years, blessed with 2 beautiful daughters, Ruby, 10, and Chloe, 8. They are my entire universe. Evelyn is a year my senior and serves as an executive assistant to our superior, Arthur Miller. She wasn't employed there when we first met. She had recently lost her previous position. I encouraged her to apply to my firm, and Human Resources waived the no family members policy for my sake. She arrived with exceptional references, and Arthur, in need of assistance, hired her on the spot. She integrated quickly, perhaps too quickly. Charles and Victor, who specialize in high-end insurance, weren't close acquaintances. They were simply individuals I'd encounter at various professional functions. Charles consistently struck me as unsettling, overly smooth, gazing at my wife for too long, laughing too boisterously. They operate under Lawrence Hayes, who is a trusted colleague. I've relied on him for years, and we've collaborated on numerous cases. He maintains a close relationship with Arthur, but I know Lawrence well regardless. I completed the sweep, submitted my report, and returned to the Glendale Gallery party before the gathering had concluded. Upon my return, Evelyn was seated at a table with 3 individuals. Charles sat directly opposite her. The other 2 were his superior, Lawrence Hayes, and Lawrence's spouse, Grace. Everyone appeared relaxed, entirely normal. Evelyn smiled, a genuine, easy smile that always warmed me. I leaned down, kissed her hair, and we even shared a dance, a slow, comfortable sway that felt utterly familiar. We departed early, making our excuses, and as we drove home, I felt a deep sense of contentment, oblivious. She had no inkling I had just stepped into the very wreckage she had helped construct, and I, the supposedly astute investigator, had been utterly blind. My contentment now curdled into a bitter irony. Returning to the lavatory, I remained hunched over the toilet, the clammy cold of the tile against my forehead, battling another wave of nausea. Then, Charles and Victor entered, either oblivious to the closed door or simply disregarding it. They began conversing as if in a private changing room. My blood ran cold the instant I heard Evelyn's name. Victor's tone was nonchalant, amused. So, actually pulled it off? I didn't think she was the type, seriously. How did you even initiate that? My stomach clenched, a physical manifestation of the blow. Charles chuckled, a low, self-satisfied sound that made my skin crawl. You weren't present, so I'll elaborate. We danced a few times. She was flirtatious, but still somewhat reserved. Daniel was nearby, so when I invited her back to my office, she merely smiled and remarked, Daniel probably wouldn't be pleased about that. Victor es norte, no kidding. Charles continued, narrating as if recounting a triumphant tale in a pub. He recounted how he persuaded her to join him for a drink at the bar. Daniel was dancing with his secretary, Lucy, I believe. Evelyn was conversing with someone else, so I discreetly switched our drinks when her attention was elsewhere, giving her my double vodka. She didn't even seem to notice. You drug her? Victor inquired, only partially surprised. Nah, man, just loosen her up. I wasn't trying to slip her anything. Just wanted her buzzed enough to lower her inhibitions. That's all. Nothing illicit. He paused, a smug smile evident in his voice. She didn't even flinch when I began to place my hands on her as we danced. She laughed, leaning into me. By then, she was more than receptive to the notion. But Daniel was still there, Victor pointed out, a slight edge of concern in his voice. Wasn't that an issue? Charles chuckled again, the sound grating on my raw nerves. Luck was on my side. He approached us midway through a song, stating he had to leave for a few hours, something about a break-in or a dispatch call. She inquired if he could drive her home first, but he told her to remain and enjoy herself, promising to return shortly. She wavered but stayed, eventually joining our table, Lawrence, Grace, and me. Victor leaned in, almost salivating for more details. So, what transpired next? I got her another double, Charles recounted, his voice dropping conspiratorially. She consumed it as if it were water. Then we danced again, slowly, intimately. Her head rested on my shoulder, her hand on my chest. I could feel her body soften against mine. She was completely gone, man. She was giggling, gripping my arms, allowing my touch without a word. And then Victor asked, almost grinning, she said she felt a little lightheaded, so I offered to walk her outside for some fresh air. She didn't hesitate. We went to the back, got into my car. She settled in the back seat, reclining as if prepared. I began kissing her neck, tracing my hand up her thigh, and she pulled me closer, telling me she desired it, all of it. So yes, I gave it to her. She was moaning and declaring it so incredibly good, telling me I tasted sensational. Victor slowly exhaled, a low whistle escaping his lips. Holy cow, Evelyn? Seriously? I never took her for the type to be unfaithful, especially not with you. No offense. Are you certain this isn't just bravado? Charles's tone turned serious, almost a sneer. Buddy, I'm fabricating none of this. She's already consented to meet me again this coming Saturday. She informed her husband she has a hair appointment, but I've already reserved the suite. We're spending the entire afternoon together. Round 2, perhaps 3. Victor chuckled. Man, I'm envious. She's attractive, dude. Always thought Daniel was in a league above himself. If you ever tire of her, perhaps you could pass her my way? Yeah, perhaps, Charles replied with a smirk. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Just keep this strictly confidential. I don't want anything jeopardizing this. Hey, my lips are sealed, Victor responded, raising a hand in a mock salute. You've earned it, man. They both exited the restroom while I remained there, bent over the toilet, struggling to suppress another wave of nausea. My stomach was in ruins, but that wasn't the most dire aspect. It was what I had just overheard that struck me more profoundly than anything else. I repeatedly questioned myself. Was that true? Did that genuinely occur? My world, once so solid, felt like it was dissolving into a haze of suspicion and agonizing doubt. I closed my eyes and mentally replayed the events of that night. It was approximately 11 p.m. when I returned to the gathering. Evelyn was seated at a table with Charles, Lucy, and Lawrence Hayes. When I approached, she didn't appear intoxicated or disoriented. She was engaged in a relaxed conversation with Lucy about their children, completely normal. Charles exchanged a few words with me, nothing out of the ordinary, and then he departed. Evelyn said something to him as he walked away, a quick, almost imperceptible murmur, but hadn't registered as peculiar at the time. Now, however, everything felt amiss, a puzzle with crucial pieces missing. The sole detail from that night that lingered with me, something that had seemed tender in the moment, was what transpired when we arrived home. Evelyn desired intimacy. That wasn't unusual in itself, but it was nearly midnight, and she was typically not inclined towards late-night encounters, often preferring to unwind with a book. Yet, she was ardent, wild, even desperate, initiating touches and whispering desires I hadn't heard from her in years. Back then, I assumed she was simply in the mood, perhaps a burst of energy from the party. Now, I questioned if it was guilt, a desperate means to cleanse herself of what she had just done, perhaps attempting to rectify matters without disclosing what had occurred. My gut churned, a cold, hard knot of suspicion tightening inside me. A full week elapsed after that gathering, and nothing in her conduct triggered any alarms. She didn't behave unusually, nor did she avoid me. She never even mentioned my brief absence for a couple of hours that evening, not a single inquiry. The silence was almost as damning as Charles's words. So, I casually inquired about her activities while I was away, my voice carefully modulated to sound light and unconcerned. I just danced a bit with Charles and Lawrence, Evelyn stated, her eyes meeting mine without a flicker of hesitation. Mostly, I just stood around, conversing with Lucy about school matters and the children's play. That was truly all. She even appended, with a slight pout, "Honestly, I kind of wished I'd left with you. I wasn't really enjoying myself." It was then that my intuition, honed over years of detecting deception, began to stir within me. My professional instincts, usually reserved for art thieves and insurance fraudsters, were now screaming about my personal life. I started observing her more intently, every glance, every gesture. Hey dear," I said one evening as she was folding laundry, attempting to sound unconcerned. "Do you have any plans this Saturday?" "Yes," Evelyn responded, her back to me. "I was planning to get my hair styled after lunch. It shouldn't take more than an hour or so." "Why?" "I was considering playing a round of golf," I informed her, watching her closely, "perhaps see if Victor Stone wants to come along." She paused, her movements halting. "Victor?" she questioned, turning to face me, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. He and Lawrence both give me the creeps. Don't they usually play together anyway?" "Yeah," I replied with a shrug, feigning indifference. "I think Lawrence does. I'm not sure about Victor or his wife." "Neither am I," Evelyn quickly responded, her voice a shade too quick. Then I introduced the lure, the ultimate test. "What about Charles White? You conversed with him a bit at the party, right? Maybe I'll ask him to join." This prompted her to turn and face me fully, her eyes narrowing slightly, a distinct shift in her demeanor. "Why would you want him to accompany you?" she inquired, her voice sharper, almost accusatory. "Honestly, forgive my language, but he's an utter jerk. I danced with him once or twice." Her nose wrinkled in distaste. "Sure, but he gave me unsettling vibes. Creepy. He's somewhat of a creep." At this point, I was uncertain if she was attempting to deter me from Charles or simply feigning disgust to avert suspicion. Either way, her tone was uncharacteristic. She seldom spoke of people in such terms, always diplomatic. I feigned ignorance, tilting my head. "I don't know much about him, but he and Victor seemed inseparable, as if they do everything together. Perhaps it's a foolish notion. I'll just reach out to Paul and David. They're always inviting me to join anyway. That sounds considerably better. Evelyn quickly interjected, her relief palpable. Seriously, keep your distance for Charles. Don't get involved with him. No problem, I affirmed, nodding slowly. He's off the list. Then I asked, keeping my voice light, so no issues with me going golfing? Not at all, she replied, a bright smile returning to her face. I'll be out anyway. And hey, why don't we dine at the Willow Creek Eatery that evening? I'll have my new hairstyle. You'll be relaxed after golf. You could take me out and display me. Her tone was playful, almost seductive. I'll drop the girls at my parents' residence. I smiled and agreed. The picture a loving husband. We confirmed 5:30 p.m. to meet at home, prepare, and depart together. However, within my mind, the intricate mechanism of my plan was already in motion. If I executed this shrewdly, with the precision of a seasoned operative, I could amass all the necessary evidence before dessert, and perhaps I'd deliver the revelation her right there, over a tenderloin and a bottle of Merlot, stripping away the pretense in one of the finest restaurants in the city. The thought was chilling, yet strangely satisfying. The subsequent morning at the office, a cold resolve settled over me. I proceeded directly to the control room, a labyrinth of monitors and advanced surveillance equipment, and retrieved all the apparatus required to monitor my wife, Evelyn, and her alleged paramour. We maintained a fleet of surveillance vans, standard apparatus for intricate fraud investigations, equipped with the latest audio and visual tech. I signed one out under the guise of sensitive work assignment, a phantom case involving high-value art theft, plausible enough to raise no eyebrows, and positioned it in the lower garage, prepared for deployment on Saturday morning. As I prepared to depart for golf, I also secured 2 miniature audio transmitters, one to conceal in her handbag, the other in her vehicle, and a GPS tracker that I could hardwire beneath the dashboard, a standard procedure for tracking stolen vehicles. This would allow me to ascertain her precise location at all times. The van was equipped with live tracking and map grid support, capable of pinpointing her position within 30 meters. It even provided a real-time feed, complete with high-definition thermal imaging. The microphones were motion-activated and would record conversations without any manual intervention on my part. I could park the van a mile distant and still monitor the audio, a rather effective setup. Video recording proved more challenging. While the van certainly possessed cameras capable of recording through tinted windows, if their destination was a motel room, capturing anything indoors was out of the question. I considered discreetly placing a pinhole camera in her coat, but I would need assurance that she would wear it. A potential option, yet risky. Nonetheless, with GPS and crystal clear audio, I would possess the necessary information. The remainder of the week was dedicated to observation, maintaining a composed demeanor that belied the turmoil within. I was professionally trained for this. It is my livelihood to dissect human behavior and uncover hidden motives. I kept a watchful eye on Victor and Charles, observing their interactions in the office. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, just routine workplace conversations, meetings, and lunch breaks. I observed no overt indications, no conspiratorial whispers, no knowing glances. I also remained close to Evelyn, acting naturally, visiting her more frequently during the day, making small talk, observing her every micro-expression. If she noticed the increased scrutiny, she made no comment, nor did she make any missteps. That's when I resolved to extract information from Victor. He was deeply immersed in developing a policy for Sterling Industries, a significant factory client I had previously assisted with risk assessments and disaster response strategies. This provided me with a legitimate, unquestionable reason to check in. That Tuesday, I stopped by his desk, which coincidentally was directly opposite Charles's, a strategic advantage. "Hey, Victor," I greeted him with a nod, a forced, affable smile. I was contemplating the Sterling project, It might warrant another walkthrough, especially with the new security upgrades they're implementing. Do you have time to accompany me? Victor looked up, blinking as if I had interrupted his thoughts, then nodded slowly, a slight hesitation in his movement. Sure, Victor replied, pushing his glasses up his nose. I still need to head back out and capture a few images of the new fire suppression systems anyway. When were you considering going? I asked, keeping my voice even. In about an hour. Would that work? Yeah, that's fine by me, he responded, settling back in his chair. Great, I said. I'll swing by your desk to collect you. I turned and walked away, but just before rounding the corner, I glanced back, my eyes sharp, assessing. That's when I observed them, Victor and Charles, both smirking like a pair of high school delinquents who just pulled off a prank. They exchanged a look, a smug little grin, a silent, shared understanding, and watched me until I vanished from view around the corner. That was it. My resolve hardened, colder than steel. I no longer cared if Victor had ever laid a hand on Evelyn. The instant he became Charles's accomplice and mocked me behind my back, he became complicit, a part of the betrayal, a component of the cruel joke. And as far as I was concerned, he would also bear the consequences. Victor settled into the passenger seat of my car, appearing as if he'd prefer to be anywhere else, fidgeting with the seatbelt buckle. I remained silent until we had exited the parking lot and were en route to Sterling Industries, the hum of the engine filling the tense quiet. The small transmitter I had discreetly placed in the center console was already recording, just him and me, raw, unfiltered, no pretense. I glanced over, calm as ice, my face devoid of emotion. So, Victor, did you enjoy the gathering last week? He blinked, a nervous gulp. What gathering? I wasn't there. I was out of town on a business trip. I missed it completely. I smirked, a dark, humorless curve of my lips, my eyes still fixed on the road. Yes, it's a pity you missed quite the spectacle. Charles intimate with my wife. Does that ring any bells now? Victor's face drained of color, going a ghastly white. He looked as if he'd been struck in the gut, reeling from an unseen blow. His hand twitched towards the door handle. Then he realized we were traveling at 70 miles per hour on the freeway. Finally, he lowered his head and mumbled, his voice barely audible. How did you find out? I maintained an even tone, a chilling neutrality. Charles told me. Victor shook his head vehemently. You think he'd truly boast about that? I mean, that's messed up. I shrugged, a dismissive gesture. That's the part that makes me believe it's true. The sick fool even smiled when he said it, like he'd won a prize. Victor swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. But how did you know? You weren't even at the party, right? I wasn't, I stated, my voice like steel cold and sharp, but somehow you knew precisely when it occurred when I was gone. That's intriguing, Victor. He looked down, overcome with guilt, his shoulders slumping. Look, I heard it secondhand, okay? Charles talks too much. He said he got her drunk and took her to his vehicle, claiming it wasn't the first time they'd hooked up. My head snapped toward him, my eyes blazing for an instant before I forced myself to calm. What else did the jerk say? Is he planning a sequel or something? Victor hesitated, clearly terrified of betraying Charles, but more terrified of me. Then, Saturday, while she's getting her hair done, he said he's getting a room. That's all I know, Daniel, I swear. Oh, I'm certain you were about to divulge all of this any moment now. Weren't you? I interjected, sarcasm dripping from my voice like venom. Look, man, I like you, I like Evelyn. I didn't realize it was real until now. I feel terrible, seriously. I leaned back, allowing the silence to linger for a moment, letting him stew in his fear and regret. Then I uttered it, the words casual, yet designed to send a chill down his spine. What did he say again? Couldn't he just be with her after Charles was done with her? Victor's eyes darted to me, horrified, a flash of pure terror in their depths. I reached over and switched off the transmitter. That segment was the only part one required on tape. Now, it was time for the genuine conversation. Here's how this operates, I stated, my voice low and sharp, each word command. You will do precisely as I instruct when I instruct it. No questions. You mess up, you don't even want to comprehend the torment I'll unleash upon you. Your career, your reputation, your life, it'll all vanish. Victor nodded quickly, swallowing whatever remaining courage he possessed, his face pale and clammy. I leaned in slightly, my gaze unblinking. And not a single word of this reaches Charles. You so much as breathe incorrectly near him. I'll ensure you're dismissed, blacklisted, humiliated. Understood. Yeah, man, I won't say anything, he stammered, his voice barely a whisper. You better not. I possess means of monitoring. Victor, do not test me. I'll stay away from him, whatever you desire. No, I said, a slight, grim grin forming on my lips. You will behave exactly as you always do. Let him talk. Let him believe he's in control. Nod your foolish little head. Laugh at his idiotic jokes. I already possess what I need. Just continue playing the dim-witted sidekick and you'll survive. We didn't exchange another word after that. For the next 2 hours, we simply sat in silence, working side by side. He focused on his tasks meticulously, and I focused on mine, already planning my next moves. I already had what I needed. Victor didn't realize it yet, but his role in all of this was already predetermined. He was going down with the rest of them, just not today. That entire week crawled by like a protracted catastrophe, each minute stretching into an hour, each hour into an eternity. I kept Evelyn under close observation, watching, listening, waiting. Yet, nothing suspicious emerged. No peculiar phone call she tried to hide, no dubious conduct, just business as usual. Her routine was as predictable as ever, maddeningly so. Then Wednesday arrived, heavy with unspoken tension. Our daughters had their dance class that evening and wouldn't be finished until close to 9:30. I was settled in the living room, half watching something on television that barely held my attention, my mind miles away, when Evelyn entered. Without a word, she gently settled onto my lap. A surprising weight wrapped her arms around my neck and pressed her cheek against mine, her scent filling my senses. We have almost 2 hours before I go collect the girls, she whispered in my ear, her voice husky. Want to go upstairs and be intimate? I was still inwardly tormented, angry, distrustful, a knot of cynical dread constantly twisting in my gut. But I am a man, I am human, and she knew precisely how to manipulate the situation, how to disarm me. Against my better judgment, my body reacted before my mind could intervene, a primal response overriding my logical faculties. I slid my hand around her waist, pulling her in close, feeling the curve of her body against mine. I kissed her, softly at first. She returned the kiss, deepening it, her lips parting under mine. Take me upstairs, Evelyn murmured, her breath warm on my neck. I want you right now. I didn't hesitate. I followed her up the stairs, my gaze fixed on her hips as she swayed ahead of me, a dangerous mix of desire and resentment churning inside me. By the time we reached the bedroom, we were shedding our clothes as if aflame, our movements urgent, and the intimacy was raw, profound, almost desperate, as if we were both clinging to life itself. When it concluded, we didn't speak. We simply lay there, intertwined, catching our breath, quiet and still for perhaps a minute or two. For a fleeting moment, it felt genuine, like love once more, as if we hadn't been fractured, as if the world outside hadn't been turned upside down. I yearned to believe it signified something, that everything I'd heard was merely absurd fabrication or a cruel misinterpretation. But that fleeting hope quickly vanished, dissipating like smoke. Deep down, the cold, hard truth remained, an undeniable weight. I already apprehended it. That was truly lovely, Evelyn said softly, her head resting on my chest, her fingers tracing patterns on my skin. We should do this more often. It feels like we've been somewhat disconnected lately, you know? Let's not allow it to become that way again. Her words, so innocent, twisted the knife deeper. Yeah, I responded, stroking her arm, my voice carefully neutral. I'll make an effort regarding that. She sat up slightly, propping herself on an elbow. How much time do you think we have left? Can we fit in a quick shower together before I leave? I glanced at the clock, my mind already calculating. You have a little time, I said. Or we could wait until Saturday, our planned date night. Evelyn smiled, a soft, intimate smile that reached her eyes. I can always have a girls' sleepover at mom and dad's. Saturday sounds perfect. You'll have your golf, I'll have my hair appointment, and then dinner. After that, I'm yours, however you desire, all night long. Better start stretching, mister. She winked playfully. I laughed softly, a hollow sound. Can't argue with that. Didn't think so, she said with a teasing smirk, already rising from the bed. All right then, dear, we'll be in touch. She dressed swiftly, her movements fluid and unhurried, then departed to collect the children. I remained in bed, gazing at the ceiling, the ghostly imprint of her body still beside me, attempting to process what had just occurred. How could she touch me like that, kiss me like that, desire me like that, and yet have done what I knew she did with Charles White? Either she was utterly blameless, a victim of circumstance and slander, or she was the most exceptional liar I had ever encountered, an actress of unparalleled skill. Something didn't reconcile, a glaring contradiction that screamed in my mind. And come Saturday, I intended to discover the truth, no matter how painful. After she departed, I thoroughly checked all the equipment, meticulously ensuring every component was ready. The transmitters were functioning flawlessly, their tiny indicators glowing green. My plan was to install them in her car late Friday night, under the cloak of darkness, making sure they were completely undetectable. As for the final piece, I simply needed the location where Charles had reserved the room. Once I possessed that, I'd be ready to spring the trap. And Victor Stone? He was going to assist me, whether he liked it or not. The following morning, I contacted Victor and requested he meet me in the upstairs cafeteria, a neutral, public space where Charles wouldn't overhear. He didn't even inquire why, simply stating, sure, his voice already tinged with apprehension. When he entered, I was already seated in the corner, sipping coffee, feigning casualness. He slid into the seat opposite me without a word, his gaze averted. I went straight to the point, my voice calm, almost detached. Victor, I said, I need a favor. He nodded once, cautiously, his eyes darting around the room. I need you to ascertain where Charles plans to take Evelyn on Saturday, I stated, watching his face intently. The name of the inn, the street, and the room number if you can manage it. Victor shifted in his chair, visibly uncomfortable, beads of sweat forming on his forehead despite the cool room. All you have to do, I continued, leaning slightly forward, my voice a low, chilling whisper, is catch him alone. Tell him you think he's fabricating things, that his story sounds too good to be true. Tell him if he provides you with the name and the details, perhaps you'll start believing his narrative, that he's actually a player. I smiled faintly while he sat there in silence, trying to decide if assisting me posed more danger than defying Charles. He was caught between a rock and a hard place, exactly where I wanted him. Finally, Victor inquired, his voice hoarse. How will I convey the information to you once I have it? Don't concern yourself with that, I replied, leaning back, a predatory gleam in my eyes. I got it handled. As he stood to depart, I rose too and gave him a quick, friendly pat on the back, as if we were merely two colleagues exchanging pleasantries, a show for anyone observing. What he didn't notice was the miniature transmitter I had just affixed beneath the collar of his jacket, glued securely and practically imperceptible against the fabric. He felt nothing, simply flinched slightly at my touch. I returned to my office and activated the receiver. The signal engaged instantly. Victor was back at his desk, chatting casually, his voice a low murmur. Then I heard him whisper something to Charles. Meet me in the copy room in 10, Victor said quietly, a forced nonchalance in his tone. Yeah, sure, Charles replied. What's up? Policy questions. 10 minutes elapsed. Then the distinct sound of footsteps. What's the issue? Charles asked, a hint of impatience in his voice. Do you have questions about policy? I'm the expert on this stuff, you know. Victor chuckled nervously. Nah, man, it's not that. I was with Daniel yesterday. He didn't say anything about problems at home. Told me everything's great. Said he's crazy about Evelyn. So now I'm thinking maybe you're full of it, just blowing smoke. Charles scoffed, a dismissive sound. Why would I lie, dude? I'm telling you straight. Evelyn and I, it's real. She's insatiable. Then prove it, Victor challenged, his voice surprisingly firm. Where are you taking her Saturday? You said a motel. Which motel? Are you serious? Charles laughed, a short, sharp bark. You seriously doubt me? Fine. Crestwood Inn on Elm Street, room 112. I've already secured the room. Check-in is at 2. She's arriving at 2:15. Call, ask for my name, or use my phone, I don't care. That's enough, Victor said, sounding half impressed, half uneasy. I have to admit, I envy you, man. Evelyn is something else. But you realize she's married, right? To Daniel. You're messing with a good guy's life. Charles laughed again, a cynical, dismissive sound. That's not my concern, he said. If she's willing to be intimate with me, I'm not the one ruining the marriage. She's the one making the choice. That was all I needed. I switched off the receiver, but allowed the recording to continue, a backup for whatever else Charles might reveal. I had sufficient information. Deep down, I had been hoping Charles would retract his statements, claiming he was merely joking around, attempting to appear impressive in front of Victor. Instead, he corroborated everything. The time, the location, with a confidence that suggested he had nothing to lose. Now, I possessed what was needed to synchronize the surveillance van's GPS with the inn's address. I could simply allow the system to handle the rest. Just press play and walk away. A part of me recoiled from being anywhere near that place on Saturday. I didn't want to witness her actions, didn't want to hear the sounds, didn't want to feel my heart being torn from my chest as she secured the door behind her and made herself comfortable in some inexpensive in bed with that fool. But I knew I couldn't abandon this unfinished task. First, I telephoned the Crestwood Inn, my voice calm and authoritative. A man with a laconic, bored voice answered. I inquired about Charles White's reservation. The man confirmed it. So yes, Charles wasn't bluffing. Then a thought struck me, a chilling strategy forming in my mind. What if I could capture an image of them entering that room? A picture holds more weight than audio when you're fighting for your life, when you need undeniable proof for a divorce court or a company investigation. So I drove out to the inn, intending to survey the layout and assess its feasibility for discreet surveillance. The establishment was precisely as I had anticipated. Faded, worn, its cheap neon sign flickering, and just seedy enough to align with the narrative Charles had painted. The individual behind the front desk appeared to be 2 shifts away from an indictment. A greasy-haired, shiftless figure. Perfect. Hey, buddy. I greeted him, approaching with a calm, confident smile, radiating authority. I conduct investigations for a prominent insurance firm. I need a bit of assistance, off the books. I displayed a badge. Not an authentic one, of course, but a prop badge, convincing enough to deceive someone who likely hadn't progressed past 9th grade. I also handed him a folded piece of paper that resembled a warrant. It wasn't, but the crisp $100 bill tucked inside helped expedite matters considerably. The clerk's eyes widened slightly as they flickered from the badge to the cash. What kind of help do you require? He asked, his voice a low rasp. I need to verify a booking, I stated, my voice firm, Charles White. Also, if you could relocate him from room 112 to a first-floor room facing Elm Street, ideally with a clear view from the parking lot, it would greatly facilitate our ongoing surveillance operation. He scratched the back of his greasy neck, a nervous habit. That might be complicated. Rooms are tight on weekends. I slid another $50 across the counter without a word, the crisp sound like a command. He looked down at the bill, then offered a crooked, avaricious smile. Let me see what I can do. A few taps on the keyboard later, he provided me with the new room number, 16. It was ideal, a direct line of sight from where I could park the van, unobstructed. I'll be leaving a surveillance vehicle on site, I informed him, leaning closer, a dark panel van, nothing conspicuous. It'll be there by tomorrow night, with equipment activated Saturday morning. Just ignore it. He shrugged, as if it were just another Tuesday, completely unfazed. No big deal, he said. Appreciate it. I replied, sliding one more $50 his way, for your silence, and for your cooperation. He nodded, pocketing the cash swiftly, as if we had just concluded a drug deal. You got it. On the drive back, a sense of grim satisfaction settled over me. I realized I could simply point the front camera of the van directly at the room window and let it record, the high-definition lens capturing every detail. There was no need for me to sit inside that van like some fool observing his own demise. This way, I would obtain the visual evidence without witnessing it unfold in real time. A small mercy. Friday at work dragged on interminably, each second an eternity. I couldn't concentrate, couldn't sit still, the anticipation a relentless hum beneath my skin. So, I made my way to Arthur Miller's office under the pretext of following up on the art gallery break-in, a legitimate cover. He didn't require the details. I simply needed an excuse to be there, to see Evelyn, to gauge her reactions one last time. As I came down the corridor, she caught sight of me, and her face illuminated, as it always did, a genuine warmth that still managed to disarm me despite my suspicions. She gestured me over, a smile playing on her lips. I've really enjoyed this week, Evelyn said, her voice soft, almost intimate. You've been around more than usual. Not that I'm complaining, but what's going on? Is there something you're not disclosing to me? Nothing of the sort, I replied, keeping my tone soft, controlled. Just wanted to see more of you, that's all. Is Arthur in? He is, she said, her eyes twinkling. Wanting to buzz you in. Yeah, I need a quick word about that gallery case. Just a few details. I entered Arthur's office a few minutes later. He greeted me with his customary relaxed charm. A young man for a president, yet exceptionally astute. He had built this division from the ground up and held equity in everything. His wife, Grace, a stunning blonde, sculpted like a trophy, and Evelyn got along well. They were the same age and moved in the same social circles. After some brief pleasantries about the case, I went for it, my voice dropping slightly. What's your assessment of Charles White? I inquired, watching him carefully. Arthur looked at me, a flicker of concern in his eyes. Why do you ask? Is there something I should be aware of? I need to ascertain if the man is problematic. If he's a liability, I stated, my gaze direct. This is personal, Arthur. Very personal. Do you want a straightforward answer? Arthur asked, leaning forward, his expression serious. Always. I've had questions about him for a while, he admitted, but nothing concrete enough to act on. Do you suspect something is transpiring, Daniel? I might. I said, my voice low. And Victor? He's connected to it somehow. I'll know more by this weekend. If it all unfolds as I anticipate, I'll call you Sunday, if that's agreeable. If not, if it's a false alarm, I'll wait until Monday. Arthur nodded slowly, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. Let's wait, but I appreciate the heads up. Keep this between us, of course. For now. He leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful expression on his face. You know I trust your judgment, Daniel. Always have. That VP spot I mentioned a few months back is still yours if you desire it. We've been looking for someone with your integrity and investigative acumen to head the whole global division. I haven't told Evelyn yet. I confessed, the promotion feeling irrelevant in the face of my current crisis. You need to, Arthur said, his voice firm. That promotion changes things for your family, and if you don't bring it up soon, I will. It's a huge opportunity, Daniel. I'll give you an answer next week, I promised, pushing back from the desk. You think it's happening? He asked, a knowing look in his eyes. It's developing, I said, a grim smile playing on my lips. "We'll see." "Well," he responded, a slight smirk now, "I'm holding you to that." I stood, shook his hand, a silent pact made, and exited the office. I passed Evelyn on my way out and paused for a moment. She offered me that sweet, gentle smile that had once been my anchor. Then I walked down to Victor's desk, speaking loudly enough for Charles, who was conveniently nearby, to hear. "Hey, Victor, I reviewed your Sterling report. You executed it flawlessly, man. Good work. Precise, thorough." I gave him a thumbs up. That was our signal. I had heard the entire conversation. Victor's eyes widened slightly in fear and recognition, but he didn't utter a word, just nodded once, a terrified acknowledgement as I patted him on the back. I slipped the transmitter from beneath his jacket collar. Just as before, he didn't even notice, too consumed by his terror. I concluded the day on autopilot, a zombie awaiting Evelyn so we could drive home together. I informed her I needed to drop off some equipment at the facility and might be a little late returning, just needed to stop by the van, then hail a cab to my car. She kissed me goodbye, her lips soft against mine. Charles was near the exit as she departed, a casual loiter. I observed him watching her as she walked away, a predatory gaze. Then he looked at me. Our gazes locked, a silent challenge. He blinked first, a flash of something unreadable in his eyes, and turned away. Later that night, under the cover of darkness, I drove the van to the Crestwood Inn, parking it directly in front of room 16, the one I had arranged with the clerk. I secured the camera inside, a discreet, high-definition lens capable of night vision, double-checked the angle, ensuring a perfect view of the room's entrance, and set it to standby. On my way out, I stopped at the office one last time. Leaving the van here through tomorrow, I informed the attendant, his eyes still heavy with sleep. "Just a stakeout, nothing to worry about." "No problem," he responded, barely looking up from his phone. I slid a final $20 across the counter, a silent thank you. "Appreciate it." He nodded and accepted it with a quick, furtive handshake, his hand already itching for the cash. Then I headed home, knowing the snare was laid, the trap set. Friday night caught me by surprise. Evelyn ordered pizza for the girls, a spontaneous treat, and casually mentioned she had already arranged for them to stay at her mother's for the evening. My eyebrows shot up. "What's the occasion?" I inquired, my voice feigning curiosity. She smiled, a teasing, sensual curve of her lips, and said, "Because I loved what happened Wednesday." "I want more of that, don't you? All night." I grinned, a forced, tight smile. "Are you joking?" I'm certainly not complaining. That night unfolded precisely like Wednesday, but with a surprising element. She was more assertive, more self-assured, engaging in activities she hadn't before, moves that astonished me. And while I was enjoying myself, an odd, bitter thought crept into my mind. Where on earth did she acquire all of this? Afterward, as we were catching our breath, tangled in the sheets, I asked, my voice a casual whisper, "Okay, not that I'm upset, far from it, but where did you learn those techniques? You're full of surprises." She laughed, a light, melodic sound, then reached in her nightstand and retrieved a book. "Here," she said, flipping to a dog-eared page. "It's from Intimacy After 35. Grace gave it to me last week. Apparently, there's an entire chapter on maintaining passion in a long-term marriage. Damn, if she hadn't adhered to it meticulously, I couldn't deny it. It was phenomenal, consuming hours, but I didn't care. Heavens, I even considered acquiring some male enhancement pills for next time, just to keep pace with this new, unleashed version of my wife. As we lay there, intertwined, a fragile moment of peace, I finally articulated what had been troubling me, my voice softer than I intended. "Evelyn, I'm relishing this, and I want to provide you with everything you need, but I have to ask, what is this truly about? Why now? I mean, if I didn't know you better, I'd suspect you were compensating for something, trying to erase a guilt." She turned her head toward me, her eyes soft, clouded with a genuine emotion I couldn't quite decipher. I'm sorry, Dan. Grace told me something last week. I can't truly share what, but it resonated with me deeply. It made me reflect on us, on the girls, and how incredibly fortunate I am to have you. It simply made me want to demonstrate how much you mean to me, how much I still desire you. I gazed at her for a few seconds. She appeared so genuinely happy, so sincere. It stung, a paradox of pure emotion and profound suspicion. But that persistent voice in the back of my mind continued to whisper, if that's true, why is she betraying you? Why were Charles's words so real? Still, I asked, are you certain I make you happy? I mean, truly, are you satisfied? Or is all this new passion merely an attempt to fill a void you feel somewhere else? Evelyn reached up and caressed my cheek, her touch gentle. I cherish what we have, Dan. I've always been content with you. This isn't about lacking something. It's about preventing stagnation, about reigniting what's always been there. I want to feel desired, wanted. I want you to continue wanting me. You never have to doubt that. Not for a second. I told her, the words feeling true in that moment. I love you. You are everything to me. There is nothing, absolutely nothing, that could alter that. She leaned in and whispered, her lips brushing my ear. Good, because I'm not allowing anyone to take you away. You're mine, now and forever. We embraced each other until we drifted off to sleep, and that's precisely how we awoke, intertwined, tired, but content in each other's arms. I gently pulled her closer and said, come shower with me. She groaned and said, it's warm in bed. I grinned. It'll be warmer with me. She rolled her eyes, but complied, a playful sigh escaping her lips. Once the water was running, she stepped in, reached for me, and we lathered each other slowly, playfully, thoroughly. And yes, things became passionate again, an electric current between us. After the second round, we finished rinsing off, dressed, as she began her morning routine, humming a soft tune. I, on the other hand, had work to do before sunrise. I drove out to the Crestwood Inn to inspect everything, my mind now clear, focused solely on the task ahead. The van was locked and parked precisely where it needed to be, discreetly nestled among other vehicles. Cameras were aimed directly at room 16, their lenses gleaming faintly. Timers were already set. Audio would commence at 1 p.m. and run for 5 hours. Video was compressed and programmed to record 7 hours straight, saving everything to encrypted DVDs. By the time those two entered their little rendezvous, they would be the stars of a brand new home movie, and I would have a front row seat when it mattered most without having to bear witness in person. I drove home, retrieved my golf clubs, and kissed Evelyn goodbye, the ghost of her touch still on my lips. This one's going to be tough. I mumbled under my breath, my personal agony weighing heavily. I ended up golfing with a couple of fellows from the club. They were decent players, their easy camaraderie a stark contrast to my internal turmoil. My own game, however, was abysmal. My mind wasn't focused, a constant loop of Charles's words and Evelyn's touch, and my score clearly reflected that, each missed putt a testament to my distraction. I bought everyone beer after the ninth hole, feeling like the failure I was, a man whose life was unraveling before his very eyes. Just after 5 p.m., I veered by the inn to check on the van. Everything appeared undisturbed. No sign of Charles's vehicle. No police. No anything suspicious. The parking lot was quiet, mundane. I assumed they had already arrived and departed. The sordid affair concluded. I stepped aside, out of sight, and called the house phone. Evelyn answered, her voice bright and cheerful. "Hey, dear," she said. "I'm on my way." I told her, my voice betraying none of the chaos within, and hung up. I considered reviewing the footage right then, in the secluded comfort of the van, but we had dinner plans, a reservation at an elegant establishment, so I decided to wait. A part of me craved one more night of pretending everything was all right because, damn it, I loved being intimate with her, and even if she had betrayed me, that wasn't something I could eradicate with anger, not yet. I still loved her more than I knew how to manage, a painful, aching truth. On the drive home, my throat constricted, a knot of dread forming. Why is she doing this to me? Why us? I had no answers, only a churning sea of questions, but I did know one thing. If the footage revealed what I feared, I would have no alternative but to terminate our marriage. I would file for divorce definitively. I loved her, but betrayal, that was not something I could ever endure, not with my professional code, not with my personal integrity. And then came the questions I detested myself for asking, the insidious doubts that chipped away at my resolve. What about the children? She's a good mother. Even if she faltered as a wife, she still deserved to raise them. I would provide support, remain actively involved in their lives, and strive not to poison their perceptions with what I knew. Perhaps she had a reason. Perhaps she made one poor decision, a moment of weakness. People make mistakes, but they don't all lose their families over it. These were the thoughts reverberating within my mind, a tormenting cacophony as I pulled into the driveway. I wasn't certain I would endure the night, but I knew one thing. I would not act without concrete proof, and soon I would possess it, undeniable and brutal. When I entered, Evelyn had already showered and was halfway dressed, a towel wrapped around her hair. She stated she would complete her preparations once I was finished. I quickly donned a clean shirt and slacks, my movements automatic, and we were out the door precisely on schedule. She looked breathtaking, the kind of stunning that could captivate a crowded room, her new hairstyle gleaming under the restaurant lights. She had always possessed that alluring aura. Men would turn their heads when she passed, though she never acknowledged them, always focused on me. I, however, always noticed, and tonight it gnawed at me, for I now questioned the authenticity of it all, the integrity of her smiles. Evelyn was sharp, humorous, warm, the quintessential date, a perfect companion. We conversed as couples do when they finally find a moment of peace, talking about work, the girls, innocuous topics. She sipped wine, chuckled at my jokes, and leaned in when I spoke, her hand brushing my arm more than once, a deliberate, sensual touch. She was flirting, my wife of 14 years, the mother of our daughters, flirting like a young woman on a first date, vibrant and captivating. And I couldn't shake the thought that she might have just spent the day intimately with Charles White. Yet, here she was, smiling, giggling, playing footsie under the table, feeding me chocolate mousse as if we were children again, completely at ease. And I played along, maintaining the illusion because I needed to see it through, needed to know for certain. Tomorrow, I would watch the recording. Tonight, I would pretend, for the sake of one last night of blissful ignorance. Back home, I signaled the server for the bill while Evelyn excused herself to the restroom, her absence a brief respite from my internal performance. A few minutes later, we were walking hand in hand to the car, as if everything were flawless, the picture of a happy couple. Once I turned onto the main road, she rested her head against my shoulder, then reached up and gently guided my hand from the steering wheel to her thigh, her touch warm and possessive. "Drive like this," she whispered with a slight smirk, her eyes glinting in the dashboard light. I smiled a tight, artificial smile, slid my hand higher, and pulled her closer, the feel of her body a confusing mix of comfort and betrayal. For a second, it felt as though we were young again, reckless, foolish, and completely consumed by each other, the weight of the world momentarily forgotten. She allowed a soft sigh and nestled against me. We drove home slowly, not saying much, but it felt comfortable, like the quiet, enduring love that settles in over time. Once inside, she moved around the house, performing her usual nighttime routine, checking the laundry, fluffing pillows, ensuring the girls' belongings were in order. Then she paused and looked at me with a mischievous grin. "So," she said, her voice low and playful, "don't you think it's time we finished what we started this morning? I'm pretty sure you still owe me something." That was just a teaser. I raised an eyebrow, a feigned amusement on my face. "Oh, I remember," I said. "Lead the way." We ascended the stairs, the creaks of the old house echoing our steps. Evelyn stood by the bed, slowly removing her blouse, then her bra, her movements deliberate, teasing. She wore nothing but a single strand of pearls, shimmering against her skin. She reached up to unclasp them. "Don't," I said, stepping closer, my voice unexpectedly raw. "Leave them on. You look ethereal, like something out of a dream. I could gaze at you all night." She smiled softly and said, her eyes locked on mine, "No one else will ever see me like this. I'm yours completely. I want you to do whatever you desire with me tonight. I want this to feel like the genesis of something new, a fresh start for us." I hesitated for a second, searching her face for any hint of artifice, any tremor of deceit. "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "You never have to pretend with me, Evelyn. I would never harm you. You should know that by now. I trust you, and I'm giving you all of me." Evelyn stepped forward, cupped my face in her hands, her touch tender, and said, "I love you with everything I possess, Daniel." And in that moment, I believed her. I truly did. Whatever transpired tomorrow, whatever I discovered, I couldn't allow it to taint tonight. Tonight, I wanted her, needed her, loved her as if it were the very first time, all over again. We explored new dimensions of intimacy, tried things we had never even discussed, things she'd clearly learned. She unleashed moves I didn't know she possessed, laughing as she cited page numbers from that same book Grace had given her. It wasn't merely physical. It was something else, wild and intimate and raw, as if we were rediscovering each other after years in obscurity. I didn't want it to end, clinging to the illusion of our perfect, untroubled bond. We eventually drifted off to sleep, tangled together, and didn't emerge from bed until late Sunday morning. She rolled over and groaned as the soft morning light peeked through the curtains. "I don't want to move," she murmured, burying her head in my chest. I leaned in close. "One more round?" I asked with a grin. She grinned back, her eyes heavy-lidded. "You're insatiable. I learned from the best." And just like that, we engaged again, slowly and deeply, as if it held profound significance, as if every touch was a promise. Eventually, we rose, the morning light filling the room. She had to go collect the girls from her mother's. I informed her I needed to check on some work matters, an urgent report I needed to submit, and would return later. She mentioned she might stay with her mother for a while before coming home. Perfect. That afforded me the necessary time, a crucial window of opportunity. I drove to the inn, my hands gripping the steering wheel, my heart pounding with a mixture of dread and anticipation. I retrieved the DVDs from the surveillance van, extracted the GPS data, and meticulously shut down the equipment, erasing any trace of my presence. Everything operated without issue, a testament to my professional planning. I returned the van to the facility, called a taxi, picked up my car, and went home, the silence in my vehicle deafening. First, I examined the GPS logs, the cold, hard data scrolling across my laptop screen. Her vehicle had indeed been parked on Elm Street that afternoon, directly in front of the inn. And that's when the fissure in my chest widened, a familiar, agonizing pain. I sat there, holding the printout, praying it was an error, a glitch in the system. Perhaps she merely drove past, perhaps she turned around, perhaps she dropped something off. But deep down I knew my investigators got screaming the truth. I almost didn't want to watch the video, afraid of what it would confirm, but I had to. I had to know definitively. I turned on the television, my hands trembling slightly, inserted the DVD into the player, and pressed play. The camera offered a crystal clear, steady angle of room 16's entrance. Every detail stark and unforgiving. I fast-forwarded through the early hours, my breath held tight, until a car pulled into the lot. Charles White exited, his familiar smug face caught perfectly on camera. He walked to the door, knocked, and entered. My stomach plummeted. I rewound, waited. Then a second car, a dark SUV, arrived and parked. She stepped out, a woman with blonde hair and elegant, familiar walk. It was Evelyn's figure, Evelyn's gait. My heart pounded, a drum against my ribs. She walked toward the room, glancing around once, a quick, almost nervous survey, then knocked. Charles opened the door, grinning like the smug fool he is, his arm extending in invitation. She stepped inside, and just before the door closed, she turned slightly, her head tilted, and I saw her face. It wasn't Evelyn. My stomach plummeted, not from betrayal this time, but from a different kind of shock, a wave of relief so powerful it almost buckled my knees. Good heavens, I muttered under my breath, my voice hoarse. It's her. I paused the video, rewound, and played it again just to be certain there was no mistake. The elegant blonde, the precise features. Grace Hayes, Arthur's wife. My initial shock transformed into a complex tangle of emotions. Relief, anger, profound sadness for Arthur, and a chilling understanding of the magnitude of this deception. I sat there, trembling, heart pounding, staring at the frozen frame of Grace walking into a room with Charles White. I needed to make a call. I grabbed her old address book from the desk drawer, flipped through it, and found the address I was seeking for Lawrence Hayes and Grace. It matched what I had already surmised about their typical haunts, their movements. I smiled grimly. I possessed everything I needed now. I called Arthur Miller's personal line. He answered on the second ring, his voice calm, unsuspecting. "Arthur," I said, my voice steady, though my hands were shaking. "I need to speak in person right now. It's urgent." He sounded confused. "Daniel, is everything all right? You sound serious." "It's not something I can discuss over the phone," I replied, my voice firm. "And I don't want to talk at home. Just the two of us, no one else." He hesitated, then agreed, sensing the gravity in my tone. We arranged a time and place. The corner bistro near the office, a discreet, unremarkable place. It wasn't elegant, but it was neutral territory, private enough. An hour later, I walked in with a portable DVD player and a pair of headphones, the evidence secured in a padded case. Evelyn had called earlier to say she and the girls were staying for dinner at her mother's, which gave me all the time I required, a twist of fate. Arthur was already at the booth when I arrived, a worried frown on his face. I slid in across from him, the small table suddenly feeling enormous. "Before I show you anything," I said, my voice low and controlled, "you need to comprehend what's happening. This isn't easy." He nodded, wary, his eyes fixed on the black case. I recounted everything. From the initial conversation I had captured on tape between Victor and Charles, the disgusting details, to the GPS data, to what I had just witnessed on video. I omitted nothing, laying out the ugly truth. Arthur repeatedly shook his head, uttering the same phrase over and over, as if in disbelief. "There's no way. Evelyn would never do something like that. Not Evelyn." "Watch the footage," I said quietly, pushing the DVD player and headphones across the table. "Just watch." He slipped them on and pressed play. I looked away, affording him privacy, but I saw it happen regardless. The moment his expression shifted, his jaw clenched, his face flushed red with rage and disbelief as he watched the digital betrayal unfold. I didn't need to hear a word to know the truth had just struck him with the force of a freight train, demolishing his world. When the video concluded, Arthur simply sat there, unmoving, unblinking, staring at the small screen as if it might detonate if he looked away, his face a mask of profound shock and pain. I remained silent. I waited. Eventually, he removed the headphones and rubbed his hands over his face, as if attempting to erase what he had just witnessed, to scrub the images from his mind. His jaw was clenched, a muscle twitching. He slowly exhaled a long, ragged breath. When I observed he had calmed sufficiently to listen, I made my move, my voice measured and precise. "I desire only one thing," I stated, my voice steady, devoid of emotion. "They both need to be terminated. Victor and Charles. They violated the morals clause in their contracts, a clear breach. I want them removed from this company by Monday afternoon, permanently. Arthur looked at me, stunned for a moment, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and dawning comprehension. Then something in his expression shifted. Slowly, a grim, almost predatory smile began to form on his lips. It wasn't a joyful smile. It was cold, controlled, satisfyingly vengeful. "Consider it done," Arthur said, his voice low and dangerous. "First thing Monday, I'll personally escort them out. They are finished, utterly insignificant to me. I might pursue further action after that, but you needn't be privy to any of it. They'll be lucky if they ever work in this industry again." "Fair enough," I replied, nodding, a sense of grim satisfaction settling over me. I handed him a black zippered pouch containing all the files, copies of the footage, GPS data, audio transcripts, everything except for one recording which I retained. I had my own intentions for that. My wife was in for a monumental surprise, but not the one she imagined. Arthur and I conversed for another hour, meticulously sifting through the repercussions, outlining what would transpire next, who needed to know what, and when. He confided in me about Grace, the depth of his shock, the pain of being so utterly deceived. When it was time to depart, we stood and shook hands, a new bond forged in the crucible of betrayal. "You're a stand-up guy, Daniel," Arthur told me, his gaze direct. "I genuinely mean that. The way you handled this, with restraint, with class, I don't know many who would have remained so composed. This could have spiraled out of control very quickly. I have immense respect for you." I nodded and said, "Thanks, Arthur. That means a great deal." Truly. And for the first time in days, I actually felt a sense of calm. Not happiness, but clarity, as if the fog of doubt and anger had finally dissipated, replaced by a cold, sharp resolve. I returned home to my wife and children, their innocent faces a stark contrast to the darkness I had just navigated. They had no inkling that the foundation beneath their feet was about to tremble, that their world was about to be profoundly shaken, but not in the way I had initially feared. That night, everything felt surprisingly ordinary. Evelyn was cheerful, relaxed, humming softly as she helped put the girls to bed. She inquired if anything significant had occurred that day. "Let's just say," I told her, my voice casual, "you'll find out at work tomorrow. It's going to be quite a day." She laughed, a light, carefree sound, didn't press, and we both retired early, exhausted from the weekend. She curled up next to me, asking me to hold her. I did, and somehow I felt all right with it, just for that night, one last night of shared peace. We fell asleep the same way we had the night before, as if everything was still intact, a fragile calm before the storm. Monday morning struck with the force of a battering ram, the quiet office suddenly erupting in chaos. At 9:30, my phone rang, vibrating fiercely on my desk. It was Evelyn. "Daniel," she said, her voice low and trembling, a frantic whisper. "What on earth is happening? The whole office is buzzing." I feigned ignorance, my voice calm and collected. "What do you mean, honey? Is everything all right?" "Arthur just summoned me to his office," she whispered, her voice tight with suppressed excitement and fear. "He told me to get Victor Stone and Charles White in there immediately. They're both inside right now. I can hear a lot of shouting, Daniel, actual screaming. The walls are shaking." "Wow," I replied, keeping my voice level, portraying mild surprise. "That's peculiar. Keep me informed, will you?" She said she would, then hung up abruptly. 20 minutes later, she called again, her voice tight, almost breathless with shock. "Arthur just told me to call security," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I heard her cover the phone to speak to someone nearby, her muffled words suggesting she was relaying instructions. Then she returned to the line. "They're being escorted to their desks by security right now, both of them. Charles looks like he's going to faint, and Victor is white as a sheet. It's insane. Everyone is watching." She ended the call in a rush, promising to update me again soon, completely consumed by the office drama. An hour passed before I heard from her again. "They're gone," she said, her voice hushed, almost reverent with disbelief. Fire just like that. Security walked them straight out, didn't even let them pack their desks. I remained quiet, letting her process the enormity of it. "And guess what?" she added, a note of triumph creeping in her voice. "Arthur had me type up their termination letters. Reason given, violation of the morals clause." I could discern the disbelief in her voice, the vibrant energy of a witness to an unprecedented event. She was buzzing, practically vibrating with excitement. "This is the craziest thing I've ever witnessed in this place. The quietest Monday ever until this. We have to get lunch. I need to talk to someone about this, Daniel, someone who understands." "Yeah, let's do that," I said, a faint, grim smile touching my lips. And I meant it because the next chapter, the real chapter, was just commencing. Over lunch, in a quiet corner booth, she couldn't stop talking, her words tumbling out in a torrent of excitement and confusion. Arthur went berserk, Daniel, a complete meltdown. I've never seen him like that. Security walked them both out, told them not to even consider returning. He even yelled at me, like screamed in my face. But then, of course, he apologized, said it wasn't about me, said he was just processing some deep-seated anger, like he'd been betrayed himself. She paused, her eyes narrowing slightly, giving me a sly, squinting look, as if trying to decipher me, sensing something beneath my calm exterior. "Daniel, what on earth is going on? Arthur told me to talk to you." I asked what he meant, and he just said, "Ask Daniel. He knows it all. He's the reason I finally saw the truth." "So, I'm asking, what did you do? What truth did you help him see?" I leaned back, calm, far too calm for her comfort, a silent observer of her mounting realization. "Before I utter a single word, Evelyn, you need to hear something first." I pulled out my phone and handed over the recording, the one I hadn't given Arthur, the raw, unfiltered audio of Charles and Victor's conversation. Her eyes narrowed, a flicker of suspicion, but she took it, put on the headphones. Victor's and Charles's voices spilled through. The end plan, her name, her damn hair appointment, the crude details of their alleged encounter. Her face rapidly transformed, first tight with confusion, then pale with shock, then stunned, lips parted as if she couldn't breathe, her eyes wide with horror and disbelief. She yanked the headphones off as if they were scorching her skin, dropping the phone on the table with a clatter. "Nonsense. He's lying. That's garbage. I never went any in with him. That's absolute garbage. You actually believe that rubbish? Did you give that to Arthur too? You believe this fantasy?" Her voice was rising, laced with fury and incredulity. "Nope," I said, cool as ice, my gaze unwavering. "Neither of us bought Charles's story. But you, Evelyn, you need to be quiet and listen for once, really listen." She glared, her eyes blazing, but crossed her arms, now silent, still fuming, her chest heaving. "I overheard them conversing more than a week ago. Charles told Victor he got you intoxicated at the party, took you to his car, said you two were intimate in the back seat, went into disgusting detail, like it was some locker room adult film story. Victor eagerly consumed it, said he wanted it next time, couldn't wait to get a piece of you." Her jaw twitched, her eyes wide with a new kind of horror. I didn't slow down, each word a hammer blow. I didn't know if Charles was fabricating or if he were simply an extraordinarily skilled actress, the best liar I'd ever encountered. So I instructed Victor, a terrified puppet, to press him again. Charles doubled down, stating he had reserved a room at the Crestwood Inn on Elm Street for Saturday, the precise day you claimed to have your little hair appointment. He even gave the room number. She flinched, opened her mouth to protest again, her face contorting. I cut her off sharply. "Don't. Just listen. I secured a surveillance van from work, the latest model. The technology tracked your car. Cameras were aimed at the room. The clerk provided me the number, bought, and paid for. I observed everything on Sunday. I saw who arrived. Then I handed it all to Arthur. Video, audio, GPS logs. I told him, terminate them both. And he did. Their careers are over, Evelyn, because of this. Her mouth was dry. I could see it, her eyes glossy with unshed tears, her face a mixture of fear and utter bewilderment. She blinked as if she were still processing the entire, unbelievable situation. Daniel, she finally croaked, her voice barely a whisper. I wasn't there, I swear. I got my hair done. Yes, the salon is on Elm Street, but I didn't meet anyone. I didn't even speak to Charles. You really don't trust me at all, do you? After all these years, after everything. I gave her a slow, piercing look, allowing the silence to stretch. I do, I said, my voice softer now, and I'll tell you why I do. Why I believe you. She froze, her breath caught in her throat. I watched the footage. I continued, every agonizing minute. A woman was with Charles, just as he described, entering and leaving that in room 16. But it wasn't you, Evelyn. It was never you. Her lips barely moved, her eyes still wide, searching my face. Then who? She whispered, the question barely audible. It was Grace, I said, letting the revelation hit her like a brick, the final, stunning twist. Arthur's wife, Grace Hayes. She actually gasped a sharp, choke sound, her hand flying her mouth in shock. I started piecing it together after I spoke to Lawrence Hayes. I explained, providing the crucial details. Charles told Victor he took you to his car, implying intimacy. So I asked Lawrence if you even looked intoxicated that night at the party, just a casual inquiry. He just laughed. Evelyn said you and his wife were drinking soda, completely sober, swapping recipes and talking about school plays. He even mentioned you asked her to stay close to you, so Charles wouldn't try anything, that you found him creepy and annoying. I shrugged, a bitter irony coloring my tone. And when I asked if Charles ever dragged you outside, Lawrence laughed again, didn't even bother answering, just waved it off. Evelyn's eyes narrowed into slits, a new fury replacing her shock. So, let me get this straight. You thought I was being unfaithful behind your back. You set up spy equipment, tracked my car, recorded people, and now you're standing there all smug as if I'm supposed to thank you for it? As if you're some kind of hero. You're not supposed to thank me, sweetheart. You're supposed to learn something. And you're supposed to be damn grateful I trusted my gut and kept digging. Do you think I enjoyed doing it? No. Evelyn, it was pure hell. But I certainly wasn't going to stand by while some lowlife sullied your reputation, defamed you to his pathetic little friend, and had my so-called friends lining up for more, thinking you were fair game. I stared her down, my voice firm. And yes, I wish it hadn't been Grace. I truly do. But I would do it all again if it meant cleaning house, if it meant uncovering the truth. Her voice dropped, cold and sharp. You're not the hero here, Daniel. You're just as manipulative as the rest of them. You used Victor. You lied to me. You spied on everyone. I smirked, a humorless, tight curve of my lips. The difference is, I'm honest about it. And I did it to protect what was ours, Evelyn, to find the truth, even when it hurt. To protect you. We conversed a bit more, the air still thick with residual tension, before heading back from lunch. Evelyn seemed to accept what I told her, that all I wanted was the truth, that I hadn't been spying out of malice, but because I needed to ascertain if Charles's stories were legitimate, if my life was a lie. She nodded, stated she understood, her expression still complex. I didn't push the issue. Yes, I had my doubts about her initial reaction, and yes, I felt guilty for investigating as I did for the extreme measures, but I didn't regret it. The truth hurts, but not knowing hurts more, far more. Things between us felt all right, a fragile truce, as if we were finally in a better, clearer place, and I didn't want anything to jeopardize that. Not now. By the afternoon, the office chaos had subsided, replaced by a lingering unease, a hush that followed the storm. Around 3 p.m., Evelyn called my office line. Arthur wants to speak with me later today, she said, her voice still a little subdued. Not sure why. He just said to set aside some time after 4. I don't know either, I said, and that was technically true. I didn't know the exact details of his planned conversation, only the general thrust. She didn't question it, sensing my vague response wasn't evasive, but genuinely non-committal. I believe she trusted me now. I didn't hear anything more until that night. We had dinner, as usual, the familiar rhythm of family life. The girls were in full swing, arguing over a toy, laughing at a silly joke, yelling from the bathroom, chasing the dog. Normal, chaotic behavior for 10 and 8-year-olds at bedtime. Once they finally crashed, exhausted, we were left alone in the quiet house. A silence that once felt empty now felt like a space to rebuild. That's when Evelyn brought it up, her voice softer than usual. Arthur spoke to me today, she said, her gaze fixed on the flickering candlelight on the table. He told me to consider how fortunate I am to have a man like you, Daniel. He said you're a rare breed, trustworthy and loyal. I looked at her, but didn't say anything, letting her continue. Yet, he spoke of trust, she continued, her voice thoughtful, of respect, of what it truly means to love someone, and how swiftly all of that can vanish if one isn't careful, if one takes it for granted. She paused, picking at a loose thread on the tablecloth, then added, then he told me about Grace. My heart skipped a beat, but I kept my expression neutral. What about her? I inquired, my voice calm. He told me she did something, Evelyn said cautiously, choosing her words carefully. He didn't provide details, just said he wasn't sure he could move past it, that his trust was shattered. And then he asked me for advice, Daniel. My advice? I raised my eyebrows, feigning surprise. So what did you tell him? I told him I couldn't make that decision for him, she said, her eyes meeting mine, earnest and vulnerable. I just asked if he still loved her and if he thought forgiveness was even feasible, if he could ever truly look at her the same way again. If the answer was yes, then I said he should give her the space to explain, to work through it, to fight for their marriage. But if it wasn't, if he knew in his gut he couldn't get past it, then I told him not to prolong it. Just walk away, don't let it fester, don't let resentment destroy him. I nodded slowly. That sounds like sound advice, Evelyn. Very wise. He seemed to absorb it, she said, a faint smile touching her lips. So maybe I helped him just a little. I'm sure you did, I replied, my voice sincere. He didn't say anything about me, did he? After all this drama, Evelyn hesitated, a slight blush rising on her cheeks. Not really, although there was something else. Something big. She looked up at me, curious, a playful spark in her eyes. He told me something big, Daniel. Something that affects us. I leaned back slightly, watching her face, knowing what was coming. Arthur offered me a new position, I stated, my voice steady, Vice President of Investigations for the entire company. Her eyes widened, then her jaw dropped in astonishment. I'd be overseeing every investigator in every office worldwide. I continued, detailing the scope of the promotion. And we'd have the option to relocate California, Florida, wherever we have a major base. I'd still report directly to Arthur, but that's it. The job comes with significant stock options, a substantial raise, much better benefits, everything we've ever talked about wanting. Evelyn let out a squeal, a sound of pure, unadulterated joy, and leapt into my lap, laughing like a child, completely unburdened. She wrapped her arms around my neck and hugged me so tightly I couldn't breathe, a joyous squeeze. Oh my goodness, Daniel, she said, beaming, her face buried in my shoulder. When did this happen? Is this because of what you did today? Is this some kind of bonus, a reward for cleaning house? I chuckled, pulling her closer. Now, who's jumping to conclusions? Arthur offered it 6 months ago. I just wasn't ready to make that kind of decision, wasn't ready to shake up our lives. But after everything that transpired last week, it kind of put things into perspective. What truly matters? She pulled back just enough to look me in the eyes, her expression suddenly serious, almost fierce. "Daniel, listen to me," she said firmly, her hands cupping my face. "You'll never lose me, not like that. I'm not going anywhere. No one else ever. That will never happen. Do you understand?" Understood. Her intensity, her raw emotion, was captivating. "I hear you," I said quietly, meeting her gaze. "No, say it back. I need you to believe it, Daniel. I need to know you trust me." I met her eyes, a promise in my own. "Okay, Evelyn, I believe you, with all my heart." "Good," she said, a soft, relieved sigh escaping her lips, kissing me on the cheek, then my lips. "Because I'm yours, Daniel, and that's never going to change. Never."